What is the Constitution? How does it work? Why is it important for you to know about it? To answer these questions, we need to understand what a constitution is, what are the three organs of government, and which is superior, and how the constitution affects your rights. First, what is a constitution? As I said, consider three documents. Your birth certificate explains your identity. Consider soccer. Now you play soccer by obeying football rules, not hockey rules. What about a car? When you buy a car, you get a manual, a reference book. It tells you how all the parts of the car work. If something goes wrong with the car, it tells you how you can solve the problem. A written constitution is like these three documents and more. When constitutional lawyers refer to a state, what do they mean? A constitution will usually refer to several players: the state, the citizens, the three organs of government, and legal structures. What is meant by the phrase state? It's not a subordinate body. For example, the state of Negri Sembilan, from where I am from, or Selangor, or Illinois, or New York, or Andhra Pradesh. In constitutional law, a state means the nation. Malaysia. Next, what are the three organs of the state? The three organs are the legislature, usually called a parliament, the judiciary, which is made up of judges and courts, and the executive. Sometimes the executive is loosely, even mistakenly, referred to as the government. How does the constitution work with the three organs of government? When I say government, note the lowercase g. We can use a biological analogy to understand how it works. Suppose your body represents the country, the brain represents parliament, the legislature, and the limbs represent the government. What the brain tells the limbs to do, they must do, not the other way around, as we see today. A constitution is a set of rules that explains and instructs how the three organs of the nation, parliament, the judiciary, and the government should work together. But is a government superior to parliament or the judiciary? We address that now. Start with the legislature or parliament. Now, in a democracy, the citizens rule the country. You do. Since you are busy with your own life, you elect your representatives, say, once in 5 years. The representatives are called members of parliament in the Commonwealth. In the United States, what do you think they're called? Now, these MPs sit in parliament. So, parliament is the representative of the people. Parliament makes laws to help and protect the people and the nation. Now, parliament therefore has a higher rank than the executive or the government. Now, what does the executive or government do? What is it? Now, the government is called an executive because the government carries out or executes the will of parliament. The government takes care of the day-to-day running of the country for a maximum of 5 years. If it wants to spend money, it has to ask parliament for permission. The request for permission is called, as you know, the budget. If the people's representatives, the MPs in parliament, do not approve of the budget, then what happens? The government must resign. A new government must be brought in to do what parliament wants. Is the government more powerful than parliament? Under the law, the government is always lower than, subordinate to parliament. Parliament serves the people. Although most government leaders forget this, in constitutional law, a democratically elected government is always the servant of the people. To understand this idea, imagine that parliament represents the owner of a home. The government represents a servant working for the home owner. The servant must do what the master asks him or her to do, not the other way around. This is because the citizens have elected parliament, thus the people control the nation, not the government. Should the government control Parliament? Then it's like the servant controlling the master, isn't it? Sadly, in recent decades, this has happened. That is not the correct way to practice democracy or the rule of law. That, my dear friends, is a debate for another day. Now we talk about the judiciary and the judges. Now the judiciary interprets the federal constitution and all laws made by Parliament. Now suppose Parliament goes against the constitution. It says all babies born with blue eyes must be killed. Suppose a citizen complains about it to the judiciary. It's at that point that the judiciary will rule whether Parliament has passed a law that is unconstitutional. If so, the courts will strike down such a law as being unconstitutional. So which is superior, the Constitution or Parliament? Purists will argue that this is not the right question and it's been asked in the wrong way. I've asked this question in this way to explain a simple point. Based on hierarchy, which is higher, which is lower, Parliament occupies a lower position than the federal constitution. Both Parliament and judiciary are the offspring of the constitution. Again, the judiciary is, although a creature and offspring of the federal constitution, it is by rank independent of and occupies a slightly higher rung than Parliament. English-trained lawyers often argue that Parliament is supreme. The supremacy of Parliament argument doesn't apply in Malaysia or in the United States, in Australia, Singapore, or all the nations which have a written constitution. In Malaysia, like those countries with a written constitution, the constitution which is written is the supreme document in law. No other law except the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is, by the way, an international law, is higher written document. Thus, the highest power in the land is the written document called the Federal Constitution. So what? The Constitution explains how the three organs of the state must work together. In a democratic country, the three organs work completely independent of each other, but the Constitution requires them to work together harmoniously. In this way, they do not overpower each other. Again, in this way, there is a check and balance in the way each operates. A constitution is not just a law to govern the country. It is also there to protect your rights. It protects you from whom? From the three state organs, namely Parliament, the judiciary and the government. It prevents them from taking away your rights. It is therefore important that you understand what rights you have. I have published a video on this separately, so I hope you're now clear what the Constitution is and what it does. Good night.